just fix this. All right. Welcome, one and all. All right. Let's get that out of the way. We can get started here. Greetings, welcome, lawful, always. Hope everybody is doing well. Today we are going to have a dynamic live. As you know, I always come with the knowledge, I always come with the facts, I always come with the evidence. We get nowhere in the legal world without evidence. We're going to talk about that today as well. Welcome. R&R Farms, lawful, always welcome. Big up on yourself, everybody. We're going to do some more deep diving today, and we are going to bring the law with us, and I'm going to touch on some never before released information. Eagle eyes, lawful, always. We're going to touch on some more information that even those who are in the know do not want to release. Sabak, lawful, always. Welcome. Yeah. We're going to go way back. We're going to go across the water. That wins, Dad. Lawful, always. Welcome. We're going to go across the waters. We're going to go deep into the island. We're going at the top of the cranium. So, like I've mostly tell you on the lives, make sure you have your pen and your pencil. Make sure you have your notepad. Make sure you are ready to take down what I am going to be serving up today. So, make sure you say your mind ready. Make sure your mind is ready. Because today, I'm going to spend some time and go over certain things that I did not have time to go over last year. You know, signatories, welcome. Lawful, always. You know, say, we have a signatories class lined up for tomorrow. So, prepare yourself for an updated brain food dump. Brain food. See? So, I'm gonna give the latecomers another couple of minutes before we get started. Exactly. It's a long time we haven't had a signatories class. I mean, the classes are there. The information is there. I know it takes time to break things down. It takes time to get to the meat and potatoes of the matter, but information is there. And even though I show you some of these things, as you know, signatories, we go by the onion model, right? we peel the layers away. We peel the layers away. So we're going to peel some more layers away so that we can get to the bottom of some of the things that we've been doing. All right. So I am going to switch over to the computer shortly so that we can talk about a few things lawfully, because well, the veils are of a multiple nature, you know. So as much as you might think you have uncovered thus far, there are more veils to be removed. King Kong, send me a Telegram message or send me a message on here and we will figure out your access issues on Voice of Jamaica. Okay? So, without further ado, I'm going to get started. Zine, welcome one and all. I hope you had a great week. We are now going to start the weekend with power. Zine. So, in the past, you will have heard people in videos, people on lives, people all over the place talking about Jamaica is not like America. We don't take up this sewing culture. We don't know what we do. Again, I am not here to bash anybody. I am not here to talk down about what anyone think they are doing. But I am here to correct the record. See? Jamaica and America is not very different, except for them there across the seas. Both countries were controlled by the British Crown at one point in time. Okay? I am sure everybody can come to terms with that. America, or the United States, and Jamaica were once British colonies. This is a fact. This is easily Googleable. See it? All right, that being the case, the system of government that was built in both countries are still, I tell you, say, you know, I want to make sure I have a pen and a paper because I am not going to be repeating much of this. America and Jamaica were colonies, right? So you see when the abolishment of slavery and in the United States, a new form of government was formed, not once, but twice. First, you had the several states, then you had the United States. Did you know Jamaica gone through the same thing already? Well, most people probably don't know that. But let us talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about the history first before we jump into the law, because the law is tied to history. All right. So you had the several states, then you had the United States, that created a federal government, meaning a national government. Instead of all of these different locations having them own government, them own set of laws, them own rules, them own taxes and all them something, you had a national, federal, overarching system, supposedly to curb abuse and corruption and so forth, right? That being said, Because it was first a colony, the system of government, the system of how everything ran, was not abolished and destroyed. The system was taken and transformed and built on top of. So, when you have a foundation and clear out the foundation and you build on top of the foundation, the original foundation is still what is keeping everything afloat. So, in America, you had the colonial British system, and now we're going to get a little bit into the law, right? We had the local police, what do they call them? They used to call them sheriffs, right? And then the sheriffs had to delegate power. Once the population started to increase, the sheriffs had to delegate power and hire what you called deputy sheriffs or deputies. That is where the original police power came from in the colonies. After you had those type of deputies and sheriffs, then the population increased again, and they could not cover the different areas that were already being populated and built up and all them something there. So now they needed to create smaller governments. The same thing where them a come from and the same thing them a go back to. The sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs had what's called original jurisdiction. Right? The same thing was in Jamaica. Keep that in mind. Now, because of the largeness of the population, people start spreading and building communities and all of that. The government wanted to have, of course, control social structure and social order. So what the government do? Created corporations called municipalities, or in Jamaica, most commonly called municipal corporations. These municipal corporations had local police, but these local police did not have what is called general police powers. They were very specific in terms of their duties. So, the general police powers remained. Let's go back to America for a second. The general police powers in America remains with the sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs to this day. The sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs in America are still here 400, 500 years later. Now, what do we call the municipal police? Because when they just started, they were not really called municipal or municipalities. Municipalities. Right? So over time, the name Constable was given to those types of police. In America, so you have the sheriff, the deputy sheriffs, then you have the local police, which now they start calling them constables, deputy constables, sergeants, and all these other different things. These are lower ranks under the sheriff umbrella. So the sheriff has original jurisdiction, and the sheriffs have to keep delegating little authority to different branches of the police system or law enforcement umbrella. Now, in a Jamaica now, them no want make it appear like what happened in America with the revolutions, them no want that kind of negativity in the Caribbean. So what them do? Them just remain with the constable structure, right? Now talk about no sheriff, then get rid of the whole sheriff thing. The constables are who are created in an office and granted power in Jamaica, right? But the sheriff is still there. Do you know who the sheriff is in Jamaica? I'm not going into that. I don't know why I know them something. But anyways, America still has constables. America still has constables. Anybody think I'm joking? You want to know? Yes, you want to know who the sheriff is in Jamaica? Remember, you know, constables do not have original jurisdiction. They are created. They are a creature of statute, a creature of law. So that means what? They do not have original jurisdiction as a matter of the Constitution. I know this is a little bit over some people's head, but stick with us. So if the police does not have original jurisdiction because they are not described in the Constitution as a constitutional officer. In America, when you have any office of government described in the Constitution, that is what you call a constitutional office, right? It is created as a matter of law by the Constitution. But when you have an office that is not created as a matter of the Constitution, it is created by another act of the legislature or an act of parliament or an act of the Senate of the House, then that is what's called a separate lower creature of law, an office creature of law. So who created the constabulary force? The GG. So, as you know, we don't just talk, right? We come with the facts and the evidence. So, let us pull up the Constabulary Force Act for ourselves so that we remain lawful, right? We want to ensure that whatever we're talking about is substantiated with evidence. So, let us jump over to the computer. Javi Wagwan, big up yourself. Welcome back. It's been a while. Don't. So address your question. So here we have the Constabulary Force Act. See it? And here it says in section 3, it shall be lawful for the Governor General to constitute a police force which shall be called the Jamaica Constabulary Force, which shall be partially under military organization and discipline. Right? So it is the Governor General who is creating the constabulary force and giving it lawful effect. Just like in America, the sheriff and the sheriff's department control each county as far as police or law enforcement is concerned. That is where police power come from. It's always the sheriff. So in Jamaica's case, even though he is not named the sheriff here, this is where the root is coming from, the Governor General himself. And if you notice, the Governor General here is just plainly named, right? So he is the one that brings the constabulary force as a matter of law, because he is what? A constitutional officer. Let us go back to the Jamaica Constitution Order in Council 1962 and take a look at where the GG comes from, the office of the GG, right? See, here we have in chapter 4, the Governor General. Section 27 states, there shall be a Governor General of Jamaica who shall be appointed by Her Majesty, and shall hold office during Her Majesty's pleasure, and who shall be Her Majesty's representative in Jamaica. So, the police force, by extension, is for the Queen. It is owned by the Queen. It is not Jamaican, as we would claim. Okay? Now, when we talk about why does this even matter, right? What is all of this history, and why are we even talking about it? Because at the end of the day, the police force is there. Sometimes they do what they want to, and people feel like them can't do nothing about it. But let us go back to Javi. What Javi question? There's so much. Javi said, what their constitution say about JCF? Talking about American constitutions, Javi? If you're still there, clarify your question so that we can deep dive. See? So, why does all of this matter? Because if you don't know the history of what is going on now, you cannot formulate any remedy on what is supposed to be the law. For example, many times I tell people, go and download the Constabulary Force Act and read it. Don't take my word for it. Go and read it. Why? Because we have requirements here that sometimes are not met. Let me give you an example. Here is what is called an oath of office. You know, like how people, when them get married, them have a marital oath. You know, sometimes when people do certain things, them swear them in. You know, when they go in a court and them say, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Right? Those oaths are what you are bound by. Right? Marital oath or marital vows. Either one. Right? When you speak the words and you agree to the words by the person who is instituting or officiating the oath, then your agreement is binding, right? So here is an example of the oath that the police must take. Every single police must take this oath before they enter office. Let me say that again. This is mandatory. There is no option here. It says no person to be appointed under this act to be an officer or sub-officer or constable shall be capable of holding the said office until he shall take and subscribe the oath here following, that is to say. And you have to take this oath. Somebody has to give you, administer the oath to you. You take the oath and you sign. And the officiator also sign. It says, which oath shall be administered by any of Her Majesty's justices or by an officer. Okay? This is a requirement. Now, how many of you ever requested the oath for a constable or an officer or a sub-officer? In the chat, how many of you have ever seen an oath of office? Javi said, so if a police don't have his name tag, flash, badges, or cap, does he still have his powers? Javi, the police powers don't come from his name tag, his whatever you call a flash, badges or cap. He may not be properly dressed, depending on his duty, but that does not remove his power of office. That does not invalidate his authority. I mean, you know them something I know, but yeah, man, bring the questions either way. So, if you've never seen an oath of office, Sir Andy says, has the oath of office changed? No, this is the current Constabulary Force Act. This is the Constabulary Force Act, and this is what it states, and it is mandatory. And to my knowledge, the Constabulary Force Act has not changed recently. But if I am in error, be sure to point it out or where your source comes from. I would be happy to get an updated version or copy. But this is the current version, to my knowledge. So, now, that being said, this is the statutory oath. There may be other oaths that the constable needs to take while he is employed. This may not be the only thing. Okay, but this is what is required as a matter of law. If you have never seen one of these, it is your right to request a copy of this. And you request this from the police station. You can request this from, a matter of fact, there is an office, a governmental office, that you can also request government documents from. You can Google it. I'm going to bring it up. Matter of fact, give me a second. Let me see if I can find it so you can take note. I told you, when you not come to class today, you take notes. See? I'm going to bring up this section where we can find all right. So here's the website. All right. It is called opm.gov.jm. Office of the Prime Minister. Right? And it is under participate. And it have access to information. See? Once you go here, it gives you the instructions on how you can request official government documents. Let me see if I can bring this over here. It gives you the instructions on how you can go about requesting official government documents and so forth, right? So, Javi said there's an updated version of the oath of office for police. Well, words like the Queen and so forth may be substituted, but apart from those semantics, it has to be substantially the same as what is listed here. The oath of office must be substantially the same as what is here. So instead of Our Lady the Queen, they'll probably say, or whatever, the King. Right? Right. The end result is that they are still serving the crown. They are not serving the people of Jamaica. Sir Andy says, I name those swear that I will well and truly serve the people of Jamaica. Now, regarding the oath, right? Like I said, there is more than one. A statutory oath is required, meaning the one that is required by law, it cannot be modified unless there is an act of parliament or some other official government modification that allows this change. It is not a single oath as far as I know, and from what I've gathered from those who submit information to me. This is one of possibly more oaths that has to be administered depending on their office and depending on their duties, their rank. Okay? So, if it is that the oath has changed, it has to be in conformity with the law, because you cannot go around the law talking about, well, we no longer have a queen, no, it is a king, so we have simply changed and modified it. I'll give you an example. Everyone is subject to the law, right? So if you took an oath, let's say a police got initiated today, right? And he took an oath and he got a copy of that oath, and another copy has been sent over to, for example, the commissioner, and a copy sent over to the GG or the AG, whichever one, right? If I know, for whatever reason, retrieve a copy of that oath and I bring that to court, right? As a matter of law, if the oath is substantially different from what is listed here in the law, the court has to rule on the law. The court cannot rule on, again, basic things like changing the sovereign queen to sovereign king. Obviously, it is what is current, right? You can't harp on that. But if it is substantially different than what is listed here, the court has to rule on the law. And currently, this is the law. So regardless of what other oath is out there, and if it say they must serve Jamaica instead of serve the king or the queen, that is a substantial change, and that cannot survive the rule of law. Hope that makes sense. I get what you're saying, That might not be the oath that they are taking. I know for me problem that. My thing is, if it is in the law, the law may I follow. Plain and straight. And the court cannot rule outside of the law. It has to be substantial with the law. Right? So, I am going to bring up something else that we are going to review. Because remember we saying, the constables are also in America. And for those who keep on saying, this is not America, this is not America, we are going to take a look at something. See? I'll be a little bit lazy here and I go through. See if I can find this right here. Maybe I can find it in time. Okay. Let us take a look here. Right? Now, did you know that America also have attorney generals? How many of you don't know that? The states in America also have attorney generals. Here we have judicial decisions. And here we have opinions of the attorney general. Let me bring it up so you can see. You see what it says? Opinions of the Attorney General. So when the Attorney General is faced with questions of clarification by the court, he has to answer. Right? Here you know. I'm going to show you something. Now, I remember a while back, I explained to you that a constable's authority comes from the magistrate court. I mean, know enough little attorney want to run up and I say, me I mislead the people them. Right? Let's take a look at what the Attorney General had to say. Execution and return of court processes and orders. Sheriff and the sheriff's deputies are not authorized to execute and return the process and orders of a magistrate court when that court has an appointed constable. Magistrate court has an appointed constable. Open you can see that for yourself. No. Just go back up here. So that was one. Now here we have, this is a Georgia law, right? Georgia have them own online legal database for the laws. Unlike Jamaica, it is codified and available in one place. It says, appointment of constables, compensation, and chief constable. So when I say constables are not unique to Jamaica, constables are also in America. The American law enforcement system is also based on the colonial system of the crown. They are very similar in nature. And like I've shown before, if you look at the Supreme Court cases, you can see that cases cited in America are readily accepted by the Jamaican judicial system. Am I showing again? Let's go to the Supreme Court. I don't remember what the search was in about. Let's see if we can find something on the Jamaica Supreme Court website, right? So if you type in United States Supreme Court in the Jamaica Supreme Court website, again, the search is rather limited, but hey, you can find many references to United States judicial rulings, judicial references, etc., etc. Your life is not eligible for a recommendation and is restricted. Life does not comply. People, I don't see why. You see why I'm not like telling you when time I come live? The bad mind, them I report the live. So people, tap up the screen, please. Please tap up the screen. Come in and see what kind of restriction I could have get you now when I talk about the law. Let me see what they must say. Live is not appropriate for all regions. Is what I'm talking about? Bad mind is active. So, we know that the agent them now want to learn them something here. Right? So tap up the screen, please. so that them realize that people are interacting with the live, people are there. When I learn something, or when I entertain, I don't know. Whichever one. Right? So, the United States also has constables. Right? But I'm also going to show you something else. We're going to go a little bit deeper. Here we have another section of law. It says, constables' power to arrest. Constables shall exercise the power of arrest only with a warrant or at the direction of and in the presence of a magistrate or the judge of another court. So here we're seeing again the derivation of a constable's power from the magistrate court. This is their original authority, right? After they are created. Here what them say. Let's see if I can zoom it in a little bit. Kind of go off screen still, but here what them say. Law enforcement officer includes constables. So it is not a one-off thing. It is not a one-off thing. It is clearly recognized in American law that the constables are local police, right? But I want to bring your attention to something, right? For those of you who might be in America, you can readily cite this when you are challenging the authority of a constable. This is, let's go back up here. So again, opinions of the Attorney General. Who is an Attorney General? An Attorney General is the chief legal counsel for the entire state. He is the head legal counsel. Okay? So when he makes an opinion on something, it is law when it comes to the court. And he said, no authority to enforce motor vehicle laws without a warrant. In the absence of a warrant, a constable does not have the authority to enforce the motor vehicle laws of the state. Now the question is, who is a constable? In America, a constable is anyone who does not have sheriff or deputy sheriff powers, right? So if you're in America, that was a gem. All right, so let us get away from the America system of law. Let us come back down to Jamaica, or across to Jamaica, all right? So like we say earlier, Section 27 of the Constitution, Order in Council 1962, grants the Governor General a constitutional office, meaning that him can't get fired just like that. It has to be a very egregious and constitutionally recognized violation for him to be removed from office. So anybody can run up on the GG. See? So the GG gets into office by the Constitution, and the Constabulary Force Act is what the GG uses to create the Constabulary Force. So the Constabulary Force is not a constitutional office. It is an act of the legislator or an act of government or an act of the arm of government. Okay? So, a constable does not have sovereign authority. They are servants, public servants. And as servants, you would assume that they are servants of the people, but they are servants of the government. By extension, it extends to the people because the people are the ones who granted their voting power to create the government. Imagine that. Your little bit of power, what you think you have, where you run go vote, that is what is used to create the government and create the constabulary force over and over again. Even though they are not a part of the election nor the government creation process, Without the government, this office does not exist. Okay? So anyways, Constabulary Force is created by the GG. They need an oath of office. If you never see an oath of office, you don't know what it is, you should. If you are challenging, if you are go to court, if you have matters that have a legal precedence or legal importance, this is one of the documents that you should request. Why is this important? It is constables alone who have the authority to be out there on the road. It is constables who have the authority to interact with people. And if this oath of office says something other than constable, that stop, that interaction, everything related to what happened on the side of the road is unlawful. So that is why this document is very important. You never hear anyone talking about this because it is the heart of authority. I'll give you an example. A sub-officer, a supervisor, a superintendent, chief constable, none of those officers have the authority to stop your car. It is only a constable have the authority to stop your car. Am I just saying this? Or is it written? As they would say. Is it written? Let us take a look. Let us go down to one of their favorite sections to quote. Section 17, 18, and 19. What it say? Let's zoom in. Constabulary Force Act, section 17. Any what? Any constable may search any person on any ship, boat, or whatever. Constabulary Force Act, section 18. It shall be lawful for any what? Any constable to apprehend without warrant any person known or suspected to be in unlawful possession of drugs. Section 19, Constabulary Force Act. It shall be lawful for any constable. So, who has the power to stop your car? A district constable or a constable? A superintendent? A supervisor? As a matter of law, only a constable. No additions to the name. No prettying it up. No misspellings. Only a constable has the authority to be able to stop a car, and only under specific circumstances. So all the way down to 21, right? Where you have the powers of arrest, the power to prevent congestion, right? Anyways, we don't want to beat a dead horse here, right? So only a constable have the authority to do any of these things. Now notice it never say a constable can stand up in a road and go stop car. No part of the Constabulary Force Act give them that power to go out there and stop car. It gives you specific instructions. But anyways, we've been through that already. So, let us get back to something basic, which we all should know. You see, as people who love ball say, yeah, violate my rights. Which part were rights there? What we are going to do about our rights? If you have rights and you don't know how your rights apply within society, what good does it do you? Hmm? The first thing you need to know is, what is the law? What is an act? That is the very foundation of the law and how the law is enforced. So, this is the reason we just been through the historical nature of the police force. And we show you say America is not that far off from Jamaica. The only difference in America is that America matured very fast because of its vast population. That means that what, they have more court cases, more situations, more things them deal with and go through. So others can piggyback, them can learn how to fight, and then can build from that. Right? You're not supposed to just simply compare if you say Jamaica and like America. In fact, if people really look on America and say, you know something? Me I go follow what the American them do. Anytime I get violated, me I sue. Anytime me feel like say, yo, this is a situation just oppress me too much, me I go find out which part of the law me can use to benefit myself. That is how Americans think. Them not sit down there, I pick it, I walk up on road, I block up road and I do them something. Like none of that now go help. How long can you sustain that for and what does it do? Nothing. Now, if you bring something to court, the court has to dispose of the matter some way, somehow, according to law. So this is why the law is important. It don't matter who it is. A matter of fact, I'm not telling anyone to go do anything, you know. But everybody is subjected to the law, including the judges, including the attorneys, including the clerks of court or the clerk of court. I don't know where the word clerk come from, you know. Because clerk sounds like clerks you put on your foot. But even the clerks of court, or the clerks of court, more properly put, they are also subjected to the law. They also have an oath of office they have to take. They also have powers and duties. A clerk's duties are what's called ministerial. They don't have discretion to refuse and do anything else. All they have the power to do is take documents and log into the system. A lot of the things I hear clerks of court do. Boy, may I tell you, ignorance of the law is not a good thing. And ignorance is not bliss. Anyways, what is a statute? I'm going to go back to the basics here. We talked about this last year, and this is on the Daily Dose of Law if you've been following my page. What is a statute? A statute is the written will of the legislature. What is the legislature? House of Parliament. House of Parliament come up with these acts of Parliament, right? That is what's called the legislature, the legislative or the law writing body of the government, the law making body of the government, right? So the written will of the legislature, solemnly expressed according to the forms prescribed in the Constitution, an act of the legislature. You notice what it says? An act of the legislature. How many of you heard of an act of parliament? Same thing, an act of the legislature. So, in America, they call it the statute. In Jamaica, they would call it an act of parliament, right? So you have the Road Traffic Act, the Dangerous Drugs Act, Predial Larceny Act, etc., etc. It is the same thing. It is called a statute. Written will of the legislature, right? Now, here, and this is an old dictionary. This is the Bouvier's Law Dictionary. I don't know if you can see it. 1856 edition. And I've had people say before, why I use them old dictionary there for? It's not relevant no more. Some of the words them change and this and that and blah blah blah. The reason you need an old dictionary is because the derivation of a word or the origin of words, the origin of the meanings of the words are often changed over time. And when those words change, they don't change for the better. They change to oppress you more. So if you can find the original authority, you can always rely on the original authority. And if you rely on the original authority, the court can't tell us that you can't use that dictionary. And I've shown this before again. You can go and search any of the court records, the Supreme Court, the Appeals Court. You will see it clearly referenced. Bouvier's Law Dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary, concise Oxford Legal Dictionary. All of the dictionaries you can think of, people have cited them in their case. So don't be fooled by people telling you that Black's Law Dictionary is only for American courts. Black's Law Dictionary is not recognized in Jamaica and all that kind of foolishness. Rubbish. Go and search for yourself. Go on the Jamaica Supreme Court website and search and see if you find the dictionary that you have. So, this is why we use historical dictionaries. Because when you come with a dictionary authority, the court cannot dismiss it, especially if it is within the context of what you are trying to prove or to show. Definition 2. This word is used in contradistinction to common law. Now, I've heard a discussion probably a few weeks ago now regarding common law versus statutory law. Well, it was really just talking about common law. What is common law? And you know something? Let us pull up. Let us pull up Black's Law, because this don't change over time, fortunately. Let us use the 4th edition, because it is one of the most comprehensive editions. So let us scroll down to Common Bill. So whenever we come across terms, we make sure we find the legal definition. So we speak lawfully. C-O-M-M-O-N. Common bar. Common law. Here we go. Watch ya. Hey, them no stop report the live, you know. Bad mind is active. People, tap up the live. Please. That is the only way we can continue the knowledge breakdown or the knowledge dissemination. Please tap up the live. Share the live so that TikTok knows that you are not offended by what I am showing. Never go say teach. All right. So common law. What is common law? As distinguished from Roman law, the modern civil law, the canon law, and other systems, the common law is that body of law and juristic theory which originated, developed, and formulated and is administered in England and has obtained among most of the states and peoples of the Anglo-Saxon stock. As distinguished from law created by the enactment of legislatures, the common law comprises the body of those principles and rules of action related to the government and security of persons and property, which derive their authority solely from usages and customs of immemorial antiquity, or from the judgments and decrees of the courts, recognizing, affirming, and enforcing such usages and customs, and in this sense, particularly the ancient unwritten law of England. So what all that just say? It is simply the rulings of the court being used as a substitute for the law, as a substitute for the acts of parliament, as a substitute for the written thing where you can go study and you can go see what this mean and that mean. The courts are trying to sometimes take over and say, well, we've previously ruled that this is the case and that is the case. That is what's called common law. But that common law is not real law. Just because a judge ruled something, that does not make it law. It only makes it law if you accept it. If you don't contest it or if you don't bring your own authority, the court is going to manufacture its own authority. Yeah, people them not share the live. People, like the live, share the live. Because every so often I am still getting a pop-up that they are reporting the live. If we don't want to continue to learn, the only way to keep the live active is to ensure that others are seeing the live and there is interaction on the live. See? I am 99.9% sure you will not find this information on TikTok. So, if you are enjoying the live, if you are entertained and educated, please share the live. Please top up the live. See? All right. So common law is simply judgments from a court, decrees from a court, previous rulings from a court. That is common law. So, when we look at Bouvier and Bouvier say what? This word, statute or statutory law, is used in contradistinction, meaning it is clearly distinguishable from common law. So why is this important? This is very important because if you learn how to properly invoke statutory law, the court cannot use common law as a substitute. Let me say that again. If you properly invoke statutory law in your case, the court cannot default or to use common law as their general rule. They have to stick with statutory law. Now, how do we do this? Let me turn on the camera and talk to them. Because this is, at the start of the year, I told you there are many things coming down the pipe. There are many changes coming, and I can't tell you all of them. What I can tell you this, you see, those of you who are learning, those of you who are elevating your thinking, those of you who are evolving, you're going to be far ahead of those who keep on waiting, who keep on delaying, who keep on looking and watching and trying to figure out how them can make another dollar. Because the world of the future is not going to be who is making a dollar. It is those who know. It's not those who think, those who know. Zin? How do we invoke statutory law as the primary law that our cases are decided on? What does that mean? Instead of the judge coming up with all kind of excuses why they are not going to rule in your favor, you force them to rule based on the law. How do we do that? It is as simple as what I have been teaching for the past 8 months. You file notices. In every case that you have, you file a notice of invocation of statutory authority. Let's say that again. You file a document called a notice of invocation of statutory authority. What does this do? This document would notify the court that you are using the statutory authority to defend your case. And just in case you didn't realize it yet, statutory authority is at the top. It is constant. It is static. It does not change. Let me give you an example. The Constitution. When was the last time you hear of the Constitution changing? The Constitution is primarily static. So when we have static law that we can big up yourself, Kim. Thank you for that. When we have statutory law that we can rely upon, we know what is in there. We know that it does not change. It is not ambiguous way. It might mean this today and it might mean that tomorrow. No. The statutory law is primarily there as a stabilizing factor in society. Common law, on the other hand, cannot be relied upon because one judge can rule on something, another judge can rule something else on the same thing, and you have that over a 100-year period of time. Who is going to read 100 years of judgments being passed by the court? Who can keep up with 100, 200, or 300 years of judicial rulings? Does that make sense? So this is the advantage of invoking statutory law. When you do that as well, the court cannot use previous interpretation. The court has to now rule based on you, your case, and how it relates to the law, how the law applies to you today. Not something that happened in 1963, not something that happened in 1984. Right now, today, based on the current status of the law, how does this apply to me and my case? That is the power of statutory law. Then can't use previous rulings based on when you invoke your statutory authority. This is why you need to learn these things. As I say, come to class. These are the basics. These are the basics. You come to class, you learn other things, how you handle yourself. Go to voiceofjamaica.com. If you find this information interesting, this information is this much compared to what you can learn on voiceofjamaica.com. Okay? So, if you come to class, you'll be better educated. Either way, let us proceed. So, if you invoke the statute as a part of your defense or your claim, you are better off. The court cannot default to whatever it was ruling on before. They have to rule on the case now, on the law now as it applies to you. See? So, let us proceed. So, now we have the understanding or the comprehension of what is common law and what is statutory law, right? And this is important because common law is not real law. It is not written down. It is not actually a part of the legislative body. And another important thing, let me turn back on the camera for that one. Another important thing to realize, the government has 3 primary functions, right? We have the legislative body, we have the judicial body, and we have the executive body. So those are the 3 main offices of government, right? The legislative body is the lawmaking body. They come up with legislation, they come up with statutes, they come up with acts of parliament, right? We're not going to go into the deeper end of that spectrum right now. But those are the primary functions of the legislative body. And them come up with acts of parliament and the GG sign off on it. You have the judicial body, right? The court system will determine how your case is supposed to align with the law or how the law aligns with your case. So let me ask you a question. If we already have a legislative body, how can the court now start creating their own law called common law? How that makes sense? It is only because of ignorance. Common law is illusory. It is a bunch of paper packed up somewhere where them expect people to know. This is why I say invoke your statutory authority. Invoke the Constitution. The court system has no authority to create common law. Anything they create is only binding within their system of brotherhood called the Bar Association. That does not extend out to the public. So if you come in there with your claim, you don't have to accept common law as the default ruling standard for your case. It is garbage. So, we already have a legislative body that writes laws in society. It's called what? Parliament. In America, in many of the states, it's called the General Assembly. The Senate and the House. That is the lawmaking body. The court has no authority to create laws and call it no blasted common law. Foolishness. Get yourself out of that system. File your notice of invocation of statutory authority. And that is how you get out of the common law system and you stick within the statutory system. Takes away all of that power, all of that discretionary nonsense. Okay? All right. So, that is definition 2 of statute. So we have the written law, and it is there's a contradistinction between that and the common law. Statutes, let's say, statutes acquire their force from the time of their passage unless otherwise provided. Right? So once the statutes go through the normal lawmaking process, that's when it becomes in force and effect. However, common law goes into force and effect once the judge makes a ruling, which again is unlawful. But it is only unlawful if you reject it and the court still rule under common law. 3. It is a general rule that when the provisions of a statute is general, everything which is necessary to make such provision effectual is supplied by the common law. So here is the only time common law comes into play. When you have a law and the law is not clear, common law is used to supplement that law until the law is made clear. You see? Effected by, make such provision effectual is supplied by the common law. So it is only supplemental. It is not supposed to be primary. Statutes are of several kinds, namely public or private. Public statutes are those of which the judges take notice without pleading. So public statutes are acts of parliament that are made public, which again is debated. There's a debate there, because what do they call public? Right? There, it is not in one place. Anyways, as those which concern all officers in general. So an act of parliament concern all officers, whether it be customs, JCF, any of the arms of government. Public laws or public statutes affect all of them. Acts concerning trade in general or any specific trade. Acts concerning all persons generally. Right? And we're not going to deep dive into this yet. Private acts are those of which the judges will not take notice without pleading. I can't even go deep dive into this right now. But there is also something called a private act of parliament, right? Or a private statute, such as concerning only a particular species of persons. Species or persons. Maybe I should touch on this. What is a private act or a private statute? When you make a public notice, that is a private act or a private statute. Even though it is made public, you have to announce it to the court. The court does not know it exists because the court is not a part of the public system. The court, the judicial system, is a part of the government. So if you're a signatory and you've made a public notice, or even if you're not, you have something in the public, you have something that have been made public notice, you can bring that to the attention of the court. And that is called a notice by pleading. And that notice by pleading now becomes a part of the court record and the court cannot ignore it. So here it is telling you such a pleading concerns only a particular person, right? It is your public notice, so it only concerns you. That is why it is considered to be a private act. It does not concern the public at large per se. It is only as notice. As acts related to any particular place or several particular places or to one of several counties, private statutes may be rendered public by being so declared by the legislature, right? So you can ask Parliament to declare your public notice, which is very hard to do, right? You don't need Parliament to do anything, but you can. You can demand that they made public notice, whatever it is that you put in the public. Okay? So, we're not going to really get too far into the weeds with the statute definition. But as you can see here, the primary thing is that you have common law statutes and you have general public statutes. And you want to take yourself out of common law statutes because that is how people keep getting away. That is how justice evades most people because common law is being used. I'm going to drop a gem. Seems like enough for the agent them gone, so I'm going to drop a gem. Statutes or public statutes are what's called non-discretionary. You know what that means? It means the judge cannot manufacture an excuse or a reason not to use the statutes. So statutes or the written law, if you insist upon it, it has to be ruled upon as is. However, common law or court-made law or court-interpreted law is what's called discretionary law. You see, because the courts made that kind of law, that is now their authority. And if you don't object to it, now that is where they have what's called judicial discretion. They can now say, well, according to this rule, this case ruling, we are going to allow or deny this. Because of that case ruling, we are going to consider this interpretation. Because of that case ruling, and they go on and on and on and on. They have a case ruling for everything. This is why it is unfair to a normal individual who does not have an attorney to roll up into court thinking that you're going to get justice. No such thing. Okay? You might catch them on a good day, but mostly you'll catch them on bad days. Do not rely upon common law. And that is how you distinguish yourself from everyone else. And when you do that, most likely they will put you into the back of the list or the first one to go up, so they get rid of you swiftly. Okay? So, you want to take yourself away from judicial discretion. It is dangerous. It is unpredictable. And unless you come with one bag of other judicial authorities, you will most likely face the wrath of the judge. Because the one thing a judge does not like is an educated population. Because that means that they don't have any wiggle room. If they have a bad feeling one day and they don't feel like they want to let anyone go, or they don't want to rule in favor of someone because they are so astute. As many people would say, do not show up your supervisor, don't show up your manager, don't act like you know better than them. To take yourself out of that bucket, you take away their common law authority. So that way, if you are going to appeal your case, again, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm not telling you say you can't go do anything. But remember, I tell you, anybody can be added to a case. Anybody can be sued. Anybody can lose them authority when them abuse it. So don't think say just because somebody sit down on a bench, they are immune to prosecution. You just have to know the law so you know when they break it. If you don't know the law, none of this no make sense to you. And again, you don't need to study the entire big body of law. Whatever section of law affects you right now, that is what you focus on. That's all you need to do, you know. For example, if you have a traffic matter, right? Let's use a ticket. You get a ticket and the ticket say, failure to stop at a stop sign. You don't need to study the entire road traffic act and the entire road traffic regulation. You look for that little section of law and you study just that section. You look through it and see what are the requirements, what should be met, what is this, what is that, and you start out there. It don't make sense for you to read the entire road traffic act to try to figure out failure to stop at a stop sign. You get what I'm saying? So that is how you maneuver the law. It is not that I know everything, because I certainly don't. It is not that other people know everything. It's not that the attorneys know everything either. Sometimes they end up on a case and I have to go back and go look and see what really are going on. What does the law say? Same thing in our constitution. You go look up the specific section that applies to you. You don't need to know the entire body of our work. You just need to know the specific section as it applies to you. See? So that being said, let us head over to the Road Traffic Act of 2018. For those of you who are still here, it is time to drop another gem. Let us drop some gems. So, we're going to go to section 20 of the Constable of the Road Traffic Act of 2018. Peanut Dread. What do you think of this case? What case? I'll get to your question shortly. I'm going to drop gems at the moment. Get on a pen and a paper. Our signatories, you can rewatch the replay later. All right. Section 20. Organ. Section 20 of the Road Traffic Act of 2018. All right. So address the situation, the peanut dread. Alright. Section 20 of the Road Traffic Act of 2018 deals with licensing of drivers, restriction on driving without permit or driver's license. It says a person shall not drive a motor vehicle on a road unless the person is the holder of a permit or driver's license. A person shall not employ or permit another person to drive a motor vehicle on a road unless the person is so employed or permitted to drive is the holder of a driver's license entitling that person to drive the motor vehicle. Every holder of a permit or driver's license who is driving a motor vehicle on a road, accompanying another person who is learning to drive a motor vehicle on a road, or learning to drive a motor vehicle on a road, shall have the permit or license in the motor vehicle, and on being so required by a constable in uniform, or who shows his identifying documents as a constable, produce his permit or driver's license, or such other document constituting evidence thereof as may be prescribed for examination by the constable. Now, couple of things here. I know there are some people who have read this section of the Act, and this part stands out, right? It says such other document constituting evidence thereof. So if you have a copy of your license on your phone, you can simply show the constable the license, right? Now, here is something that is not talked about. It says, on being so required, right? On being so required by a constable. Remember we talked about a constable earlier? It cannot be anyone else. It has to be a constable in uniform, right? Or, this is where I have not seen people focus on. Or, who shows his identifying documents as a constable. When was the last time a constable showed you his identifying documents? How do you know it is a constable that stopped you, pulled you over, or questioned you? You think you alone have to have license or have documents? The constable is required by law. If you don't think he's a constable, he needs to show his identifying information. So you can demand, constable, can you please show me your identifying document identifying you as a constable? If you cannot show me your ID that shows that you're a constable, I am not providing a driver's license. Without the authority of a constable, you don't have any authority to demand anything of me. Again, I am not telling you to go do this, but I am giving you a scenario and an example of how the law protects you. The law says, or who shows his identifying documents as a constable. I've seen videos where the constable say, you know what, I not have my ID upon me. He not have no name badge. He not have no identifying number on his uniform. He have on all kind of other things on him face. How do we know you are a constable? A constable is always supposed to have identification documents. If a constable does not have his identification documents, he has no authority. I don't know if Jav is still there. But this is one way the constable loses his authority. to conduct any kind of traffic matter, he has to be able to prove at all times that he's a constable. And especially if you have a dash cam and you demand the constable produce his ID because you don't know if he's truly a constable, because we have had cases where people have impersonated the police. And not just one case, several cases. And if people can impersonate the police, how are we going to know who is legitimate and who is not? He must produce his ID. Okay? If he doesn't produce the ID, that is one reason, one way that you can also get the ticket dismissed. Because a constable without authority does not have any authority to issue a ticket in the first place. See? So, this goes hand in hand with the oath of office for a constable. If a constable is not a constable, or if he is something else, he does not have authority to have issued a ticket. There are other things at play here. Because a constable or someone who is out there pretending to be a constable can now be considered an impersonator of office, can now be considered or malfeasance of office, abuse of office, if he is in fact any kind of officer in the first place. So, these little things, you need to pay attention to them. You can ask the constable to prove he's a constable by providing his ID. Like I said before, make sure you have your dash cam. Make sure you have your dash cam. Any kind of police interaction you have, as soon as the day is over, you take your dash cam, you take out the memory card, and you go save the video. Upload it to Google Drive. Save it on a computer, save it on a flash drive. Do not keep your flash drive in your car with the video, and then later on you try to run go back for. As soon as the day is over, you know say something happen, you go copy off your video off it. Okay? Now, another important thing, right? Someone asked earlier in a message, how do we introduce the video as evidence in a case? Because sometimes the judge is going to say, well, we don't know if this is an edited video, we don't know if this, we don't know if that. There is no silver bullet. There is no one size fits all. The one thing you should be doing is filing documents in your case before you get to court. Or you have your documents ready, so when you get to court, you just hand them to the judge. Ask the judge if you can submit documents to support your case, and you have your affidavits ready, you have all your evidence ready, you have your flash drive ready. If you have a tablet where you can show the video, you have that ready as well. Okay? You can't go to court and I tell the court, say, judge, you know, I have one flash drive with the video. It's not how it works. You create an affidavit of certification, affidavit of authenticity, where you are certifying that the video is original in its original form and it is unedited. Right? You have that affidavit certified by a JP. If you can, which you should save that memory card and bring the memory card and the dash cam. You don't really need a dash cam. You just carry the memory card to court, and the court can verify the original source of the video. A lot of different ways you can introduce those things into evidence, but that's the primary way. You need to be able to certify that the video evidence has not been tampered with. It is in its original form. And once you do that and you submit it to the court should not really have any reason to deny it into evidence. Once it is in evidence, it has to support the case, right? Sometimes the judge will just say, hey, you have it on your phone? All right, let me see what's going on. You show it on your phone, you're good to go, right? So you want to know those basic little things. You don't want to go in a court with common sense because it doesn't work. Common sense is not a part of the law. The law itself is actually a completely different language. So don't think so just because it sounds like English, you know what I do. They will run circles around you. And for those who didn't know, the traffic laws of every country is criminal law. It is not civil. Just because them tell you can pay a fine, that does not mean it is civil law. It is criminal law. Okay? So, I am... what was the question up here, so? What did I think about the situation regarding the pew-pew in the PPV? So, I saw the video. I saw several videos, actually from, I think, 2 different angles. And none of them captured the actual situation of what happened. I am hoping that individual has a dash cam so we can actually see what that interaction was before that bullet was unloaded. But that is not lawful. Even if the police is going to claim that the individual was trying to flee, right? Because from what I can see, the individual must have been right in front of the police for that shot to have gone directly through the front window on the right, facing the car. I mean, there are so many things wrong with that. First and foremost, the police in any area, right? And again, we can only speculate on what we see. We don't know the situation, but regardless of the situation, unless that individual was a direct threat, the police has no authority to have opened fire on a public licensed passenger car. No authority. Even if the individual was attempting to flee, right? Let us use that. Where is the body camera? You see how it come in handy? If they are doing their job, right? And they are out there taking them time and do whatever. If them tell somebody to stop, remember, you know, plate up on the front and the back door. If somebody are try to flee, you can simply radio, you know. You can call your squad, you know. You can call wherever. Individual fleeing or PPV fleeing, heading down Mullins Road, whatever. You don't need fear pew off of the man. If so, listen, almost anyway in the corporate area, if somebody are trying to run from police, it don't make sense. The man will catch you. The way how things are set up, I don't like America where you have this big open road. There is almost always some kind of interception point where the police can catch you. So it don't make sense, yeah, try outrun police. You see me? And even in that case, the location of where the individual was, the amount of stoplight and people and all and something there, It would have been insane for an individual to be trying to outrun the police in such a populated area. Again, I don't know the backstory. I don't know. We only see the stationary car and the hole in the front of the vehicle. So, based on that alone, right, where it doesn't appear that anybody was hurt, it doesn't appear that, because at one point we hear somebody said, don't come out of the car, don't come out, they don't have no authority, whatever, whatever. I don't know what the situation is, but regardless of the situation, opening fire in a car, and let me say this again. Let me say this clearly. Police cannot determine who is a criminal. Police only lay allegations and bring people in front of court. That is them job. Police cannot determine who a criminal is. So sometimes they must say, oh, this is a criminal in another car and a so criminal looking as. Police cannot determine criminality. It is the job of the court to determine who is guilty and who is not. After conviction, that is when the court determines if someone is deemed to be a criminal. Not before. So when them a look in a people car and a look on people and a stereotype, that is a violation of the constitutional principles. It's a violation. But again, if you don't know, the first thing you're going to do, I'll get a lawyer. The first thing you're going to do, you're going to post things on social media, you're going to do all kind of things, but learn for yourself. Again, I'm not telling nobody say, don't hire a liar. This is not what I am saying. What I am saying is this. You don't want to anger the police in the first place. And number two, you don't want to do anything where can get your life in a danger. I don't know what the situation is and how that hole end up in there. So. But imagine if that car was populated. Based on where that hole is, it could have hit two people. It can fly through one somebody and end up in somebody else. So you could have caused two casualties, two fatal casualties right there. And again, it is because people don't learn their rights and learn to sue. That is why this continues. And it shall continue until we bring up our elevation, we bring up our vibration. Unfortunately, and it is sad to say, that constable who did that, most likely him just will get reassigned to somewhere else. Because we don't know the law, we don't know how to enforce the law, we don't know how to hold individuals accountable, how to hold the state accountable. Most of us don't know. I want to now come to class. I want to sit down and look on a chair and a ball and a beg and a plea. That's not how it works. If you don't set the law in motion, here's the thing. I haven't seen many of the people who normally come on my life talking nonsense. I haven't seen many of them as of late, right? But there are a lot of people who used to say, what you want the police to do? Why you say the police now act lawfully? But let me ask a different question, or ask the question a different way. If somebody is breaking the law, what should someone else do? Should we have jungle justice, or should we bring it to the courts? If someone violates the law, we simply go to the court, right? That is where justice is supposed to be served. So if me feel say, a constable or a police officer or a customs officer or any officer is breaking the law, why shouldn't I go to the court to get justice? Why are you alone for your drug people going to court? You see, the donkey said it all no level. You quick for carry people go to court for whatever reason, or if you throw people in a jail. But when the tables return now and somebody starts sue you, yeah, say, are your job you do? Hmm? So one of my job me I do to protect my rights when time me can go to court. You see when people start serve subpoena, court issued subpoenas. You think they can say them not go to court? The same warrant, bench warrant where them would have go for people with. And the same bench warrant I go for them. This is why I tell you come to class. Because when you issue a subpoena signed by the clerk of the court or stamped and signed by the clerk of the court, make them not come to court and see what happen. Or they try silence you. You see, the thing is, when you have interactions, and I've said this before, do not make the interaction memorable. Okay? That's why I tell you don't argue with the police on the side of the road. Asking a question won't make it memorable, you know. But arguing will create a memory. Want to know how to subpoena an officer? Subpoena an officer is simple. You draft the subpoena. You can use ChatGPT or you can look up examples online. It's a very simple document. You draft the subpoena. You state that the individual is a witness to the prosecution, and thereby you are demanding that the individual show up to court on this day. Whatever date is on the ticket, you put the same date on it. And you have it served by courier. Right? You use Tara or you use the post office zip mail, and you have your subpoena served. And that constable or that officer is going to be served. And once they are served under the authority of the court, they cannot just simply forfeit court. They have to show up. If they don't show up, you can have the matter dismissed and you can have the court sanction the officer, which means that they can punish the officer for violating the authority of the court. That's what sanction means. So them can't just talk about them busy and them do this and them do that. That's not how it works. And the magistrate court has original jurisdiction over constables. Apart from the GG, the magistrate courts, which is mostly where your tickets are, the parish courts, are where the constables answer to. Right? Exactly. So there is a remedy for everything. You just have to know where to look. You just have to know what buttons to push, what directional buttons to tap, and boom, you start having progress. I hear people talk about cases that have been sitting in the courts for years, not months, you know, years. And even the other day, I came across an article that was shared where one of the judges, one of the chief justices, not the chief justice, one of the Supreme Court judges are saying that they want the population to be more educated on their rights and the law regarding traffic matters. Because enough people go in there and them and say them don't know the law. Them don't know what that law is or what that law mean. And how long has it been since independence? Right? From 62? Over 60 years. Right? And I have been on this platform talking about these things for a little bit under a year, right? I probably around a year now. And all of a sudden you want people to learn them rights. All of a sudden you want people to learn the law. What a coincidence. Because you see, when you learn the law, it is not just learning about traffic. It is not just learning about the basics. It is also about learning about authority. And if somebody authority is shaky, you see, policies and procedures have no business in the law. Policies and procedures are for organizations, for people employed within an organization. But you see, when it comes to the law, everybody have to get in line. And I just shared with you how you take away judicial authority as it relates to the statutes. So if you want the law to apply to your case, you file your notice of invocation of statutory authority and you watch how the court changes its posture. You see how quickly people fall in line. You serve your subpoenas and you file a copy into the record. And you see how quickly people stop forfeiting court. You see how the court start being strict on those who are typically just given a slap on the wrist. You know, I try not to highlight people who are winning anymore because I don't want those who come on the platform to just think that they can message me. They can message me and tell me their sub story and I will give you a remedy. You have to learn for yourself. Tell you bring your pen and your paper, come. So while I express some of what I know, you can take a little notes, you can go look for yourself, you can pull up the laws for yourself, you can go do your little research. Me not tell you what to do. You can't inbox me and tell me not care what it is. Me not figure it out on your own. Whatever I teach you, you can take it and you can do it what you please. But you cannot come to me with your situation and ask me, what if you do? How if you do this? How if you do that? This is why I say come to class. If you become a signatory, you have access to all the classes, all the information, all the documents, everything. So it is up to you whether or not you want to exercise that right. Not me. All I can do is show you the door. That is all I can do. If you want to learn for yourself, you have to walk through the door. That's it. See? So, going to open up the panel. Actually, yeah. So, any questions? You can come up. Concerns, emotional outbursts. Now is your time. Sabak.
Greetings.
Greetings, greetings. All gone.
All right. They are listening, are learning, have my pen and paper, I take my notes. Right.
Okay, okay.
I want to go back to you said some earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Section 20, paragraph 3, paragraph C.
Yeah.
That you can request that the officer shows you his identification.
Yes.
Didn't know
That's
that.
correct.
And he must shows it to you?
Yes, because you would like to verify that he's in fact a constable.
Hmm.
It's,
Next
it's
time I'm
no
gonna next time
it-
I'm gonna ask that question.
it's no different from him asking you for a driver's license and you say, boy, I mean, I have it right now, you know. Is he going to trust you?
Him not want to?
Exactly. So it's the same thing here. No, him might tell you, say, well, him not have to. He might tell you all kind of foolishness. That is why I tell you, say, everybody need a dash cam.
Right.
Because if you capture that and then he is not able to provide his ID, when you go to court, that case is thrown out right away.
Exactly.
Right. So Yeah, you have that right because it is a part of the law.
So we don't need to quote the section 23C to let him know
No,
that.
no.
Just ask him for it.
Yeah, just say, can you please provide your ID to show me that you're a constable because there are people out here who are impersonating officers, and I just want to be safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a summons. Does the officer have to give you the summons on the spot or quote unquote come pick up one at the station? How does that work?
Yeah, well, a summons, a summons,
Or a ticket?
no, a summons is different from a ticket.
Well, he told us to come pick up the ticket at the station.
No, absolutely not. No. If in fact he claims that you violated the law, he has to do his lawful duty on the spot. He can't tell
On,
us if he come no way later.
exactly, on the spot.
Yeah, yeah, you're not employed by him. You're not. No, you got your
All right.
yard and you're good to go.
All right. So we don't need to worry about that then.
No.
Hey, they a bunch of Janelle out there, when you corner them, they turn Janelle.
Yes, I mean it all depends on the direction that you want to take. If you just want to get rid of your ticket, then you do what you can. But if you want to take it further and you get it to a constitutional level, the evidence is going to be required.
True that.
Right.
True that.
Yep. Any more questions for me?
No, that was my two I wrote down. That was my two. Hey, you said something about the file and notice of invocation and what else?
A notice of invocation of statutory authority.
Okay. All right, got that. Got that.
Now, I am going to should I touch on that? I'll touch on another topic next time. Signatories when we hear about it. All right, any more questions? Tabak?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah.
Does the officer have to produce his oath of office on the spot when requested?
No,
Okay.
that is something that you request administratively.
Okay. Time for court.
No, you don't need court, but if you get a ticket, you become what's called an interested party, right? So if you're an interested party, you can request it from the government, which I showed earlier.
The website.
Yeah,
Right.
as a part of the Access to Information Act, and you submit the form, and you can demand a copy of his oath of office from either the police station or the GG, the AG, or just the government itself.
And every constable out there has a oath of office.
I didn't say that.
Oh. Oh. But
If
the
you
one
don't
that's
have one, it's a bigger problem, but you have the right to demand one, because if one doesn't exist, that means the authority doesn't exist.
right. Right. Fraudulent. He fraudulent.
Right. Well, it's not fraudulent. It would be lack of authority or unlawful.
Right.
hmm
All right. I yield. Anybody else have a question? Go ahead.
All right, cool. Big up yourself, Sabak.
Not a problem.
Cool.
LB.
Alright. So let's see if anyone else. Anyone else got questions? You can tap in the box and you can join. So I don't want to touch on the other topic because I am out of time. And like I said before, if I'm going to speak about something, we're going to speak lawfully. We're not going to just talk about something because we can talk about it, right? So I'm going to put together, the evidence and present the other part of authority to you guys. Yeah, so next time when we come on the live, I'm going to share some deeper authority. I guess you can say, not really say secret still, but things that are not typically talked about when we talk about or when we look at where do the authority come from as it regards to many of the situations that we find ourselves in. Because a lot of times we are talking about things that are above what we're supposed to be talking about or what we're supposed to be concerned with, right? It's like, I use like the analogy of a tree. You have a tree growing, right? And people are arguing things in the top of the tree. When you have the branches, you have the trunk, you have the roots, you have the dirt, you have all these different levels, but yet still you are arguing things that are in the tree. So when people are arguing things in a one ticket, right? If you argue things in a ticket, the problem is you run past authority, you run past jurisdiction, you run past all kinds of different things that make up the topic of the subject matter of whatever it is. So now, because you run past everything, it is assumed that you are not challenging it. You have accepted all of those things leading up to how you end up in court. So we're going to touch on that next time we jump on the live. Zine? So, exactly. You have duty, you have authority, you have jurisdiction, but you also have other things. The statute comes first, like the Constitution, Road Traffic Act, Constabulary Force Act, Road Traffic Regulations. All those things come before the actions are taken. So, if you talk about the actions that were taken, you run past all of that authority before, and you're not arguing any of that, and now you lost out on your opportunity to challenge the authority, because if you don't have authority, the ticket doesn't exist. It is just a piece of paper. So you have to learn to identify what authority really is and attack it there first. Even if you don't succeed at authority, now the court knows that you are not a force to be played with, right? And again, there are many ways to get to the outcome that you desire. But you first have to learn. You first have to be cognizant of what you're doing. You don't just go in there with common sense or one little thing. And you go in with one little thing and then throw you off of your game. Now you don't know what to say or what to do. This is why comprehension is important, not just bullet points. Comprehension of what something is and why it works. And that is how you become dynamic with the law and not just learn one little thing and think, say, yeah man, this is it. This is all I need. I don't need nothing else. That is not. That's not how it works when it comes to the law. Okay? So you learn one thing at a time. One thing at a time. On my page, you have the daily dose of law. If you study the daily dose of law, you'll be in a much better position when it comes to understanding what's happening in a court. Okay? Your ticket and all those other things. So, I do have to run. Thank you again for joining. And I will catch you again next time. And hopefully we don't get a restricted life like what we have tonight. All right? Have a great night. Lawful, always.